In the legends of the Toda, goddess Taikirshi, with the touch of her wand, first created the buffalo and then the Toda. Zeus, like Ahan, created the world and the netherworld in the folds of the mountains for man and animal to live like brethren. Buffaloes are sacred to the Toda. Over generations, Todas have maintained the divine herds that belong to the porcelain, but they are never kept in enclosures. Buffalo milk sustain the Toda, grasses sustain their habitats. Gods and humans partake the manna of the buffaloes. At daybreak, the buffaloes move on to the grass meadows for pasture. The endless rolling grasslands nourish them. In death, the Toda and their brother buffalo return the gesture. There are savannas in different terrains of the earth. However, it is the high altitude grasslands that preserve the primeval energy of life, water. The high altitude grasslands of the Western Ghats are spread over a height of 1,500 to 2,000 meters above sea level. Rising steeply from the plains of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, mountain ranges such as the Nilgiris, Anamalais, Palani Hills, and Asambu Hills adorn themselves with crowns of green grass. Among them, those on either side of the Palakkad Gap have the most extensive grasslands. Over the peaks and over the slopes, in every crook and in every nook, like frozen waves of the seas, the green grass, the color and stuff of life, shola forests like tiny islands, and little ribbon-like streams as gentle as the hills from which they flow. This is home to numerous lives of the tropical forests. As one moves on from secondary grasslands in the lower hills to higher elevations, tree line gives way to grasslands. The tallest peak south of the Himalayas, the Anamudi, rises high amongst these hills. This patriarch and his children are the last resort of some of the rarest, endangered, and endemic species on earth. Thars are medium-sized goats living in mountainous country. The Nilgiri Thar, Hemitragus hylocrius, takes its name from the Nilgiri hills. The Arabian and the Himalayan Thars are its only relatives in the world. And in the Western Ghats, the Thar is on the verge of extinction. Water, nature's nectar. The first drops fall onto the lap of the grasslands. Like a caring mother, Earth stores up every drop in the spongy soil so that every throbbing being may draw life from her. The monsoons. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? Thars throng in several groups and graze. Nilgiri thars are gregarious animals, forming herds of 50 to 100 individuals. Though they are now strictly protected, their numbers have dwindled to less than 2,000. They prefer to live at altitudes of 1,200 meters and above, especially in areas where there are steep cliffs. The rains are over. Now is the time for life to begin anew among the grasses, as it does at the beginning and the end of every season. But whither the beginning, whither the end? The green parda fails to mask the beauty of the many rare wild orchids, the carnivorous plant Drosera peltata, the great great grandfathers of many species of yams, berberry, cranberry, gooseberry, and there could be many more which man has not spied out, not yet. From afar, it would seem that the land is covered with a single species of grass. But the fact that grass itself accounts for several species is not commonly known. A leaf of grass is no less than a journey work of the stars. So sang the great poet of nature, Walt Whitman. Indeed, it is much more, for it is grass that gives the staple food, not only to quadrupeds, but to us too, the bipeds. For here are the wild relatives of rice, which share its gene pool, selected, diversified, dispersed, and acclimatized by humans. The plants went through several metamorphoses, evolution at the will of man. A season to reign, a season to love. The thars mate during June to September. For the adult male thar, who is solitary or at times twosome throughout the rest of the year, monsoon is love time. In the lashing rains, they emerge from the remote, unseen, and inaccessible crags and cliffs deep in the heart of the hills. The torchbearers of the Thar kingdom come to take their mates. The mighty monarch turns meek subject, fawning on his chosen one. The courtship display consists mostly of following the female around, jabbing her udder with his muzzle, or sniffing her urine. And the female of the species, true to her sex, feigns ignorance of his overtures at first. While the adult male goes about the serious business of copulation, the juvenile males satisfy themselves with hopeful attending of the prospective females. It is courtship time, prelude to love, prelude to life. Only full grown adults dominate in this scramble for sex. The rights, if challenged, are quickly settled over a bout of headbutts, pawing the ground with their forefeet, then rearing up on their hind legs to balance for a second before directing all their falling weight into a headbutt. The purpose of life is to procreate, or so it would seem. The adult male now leaves the herd and vanishes into the folds of the hills as a soft mist draws its curtain after him. Blue is the sky and blue are the mountains. Nilagiri is Blue Mountain. This is Kurinji season. Like a village bell, all decked out for the festival, the hills wear a festoon of flowers. Waking out of a long sleep lasting 12 years, the Kurinji, Strobilanthus kunthianus, blooms. It is also known as conehead or goldfishia. In ancient Tamil lore, land and culture were differentiated into 5 segments or thina. The topmost segment was called Kurinji. In the Sangha age, the high noon of Tamil culture, Kurinji was considered the symbol of splendor and plenitude. Ah, to be born a bee when the blossoms bloom. For the bees and the Muduwa, another indigenous people of these hills, Kurinji brings joy. The flower and its honey have an important place in the customs and beliefs of these people. A garland of Kurinji flowers sanctifies a marriage as it did for the hill deities. Every flowering reminds the ancients of the passage of time. In this timeless land, the only timekeeper is the Kurinji. Today, like the pieces of a mirror cracked, the grasslands, Kurinji, Thar, and the hill folk reflect the fragmented and fading images of times when life was a symphony of interrelated harmony. The females are bellyful. As time grows nearer for the baby Thar to be born, the expectant mother stores up as much nourishment as she can. The Kurinji is left unharmed as she bites off yet another leaf of grass. The sheer walls of the rocks, where no other beast can reach, are a safe haven for the mothers to be. The coming winter will see the babies emerge. Yet another measure of the year, yet another change of season. Bright days, chilly evenings, and bitterly cold nights. Life moves gently, uninterrupted, in waiting. Sholas are dense patches of evergreens located along stream banks or in hollows and surrounded by tracts of grassland. They are rich in epiphytes such as mosses, orchids, and ferns. Classified as southern montane wet temperate forests, sholas by themselves are self-contained ecosystems. Exposed to violent winds, braving extreme amplitudes of temperature, these relic forests survive. Though scattered and patchy and seemingly insignificant, the sholas, with its rich soil, good drainage, and high soil moisture content, harbor abundant life. Botanical evidence indicates that the Nilgiri grasslands are at least 3,000 years old. Yet, there are two very different views on the ecological status of the montane grasslands. Some opine that grasslands are entirely artificial, formed due to the destruction of the sholas and maintained by human disturbances, fires, and grazing. However, the fact that the shola species do not try to colonize surrounding grasslands is left unexplained by them. Others consider the grassland shola habitat to be the polyclimax vegetation of the high plateaus. Among the grasses, amidst the shrubs, and around the sholas, like hula dancers, the rhododendron nilgiricum swirl their bright red flowers, the lone relative of the Himalayan rhododendrons. Himalayas were born when the Indian subcontinent drifted away from the ancient Gondwana land and rammed into Asia. The scattering effect of this mass upheaval might explain the incidence of related species in both Himalayas and the high mountains of peninsular India. Called Persique by the Thoda, the rhododendron is a symbol of the transmigration of species, akin to many ancient peoples for whom now those odysseys are a mere tug in the collective subconscious, expressed perhaps in a song or a dance or some strange cultural motif. Winter gives way to spring. After a gestation of 180 days, the baby tars are born, mostly single, perchance twins. The slopes beat to the drum of the little feet of the babies, a running, a stumbling after their mammas. The babies are shielded from the prying eyes of predators. They are safe in Mother Nature's care. Nibbling at the grass, cavorting over the cliffs, the baby readies itself to face the world. Every herd of tar has its own baby care centers. Located among impregnable cliff sides, the kindergartens are beyond the wiliest raider. Shorter than the Himalayan tar, the Nilgiri tar measures 60 to 100 centimeters from head to tail and weighs up to 100 kilograms. The female is yellowish or grayish brown with a white belly. The male is almost black and is far heavier and stockier than the female. The white carpal patches on the front and outside of the forelegs, the silvery saddle patch on the loins, and the white facial stripe which drops from the forehead towards the corners of the mouth clearly distinguish the buck from doe and juveniles. The back curving horns are deeply wrinkled and annual rings indicate the age of the animal. Summer brings about drought and fires to the forests, but the children of the forest can survive any harshness of the season. Kurinji flowers have withered away. The slopes would be bleak without their burst of color for yet another 12 years. Grasses, too, lose life in the scorching heat. As grasslands turn brown and listless in the heat, the juice of life begins to flow out of the shades of the sholas. From every pinch of the soil, a droplet falls. It trickles onwards. The water seeps out and joins the brook. The awaiting streamlet gathers it into its fold, and the journey downward begins. It gathers momentum. Here in these lonely mountains, our rivers take birth and flow out perennially to quench the thirst of all life. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place whence the rivers come, thither they return again. Summer is just a passing phase in the measure of a year, as natural a flow as from life to death. Whether man accepts it or not is of no concern to nature, but nature does and exults in her triumph. Over the millennia, life has continued to evolve in the grasslands of Western Ghats. Here, the creator and destroyer, sheets of flame and sheets of water, all are one and the same. Nothing creates, nothing exists, and nothing destroys. In the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, in that blinding brightness of the being, all become the one. The crests and cliffs and meadows are once again carpeted in green. The seasonal cycle comes full circle, a process that has continued unabatedly over the eons. Where the wind and the sun once dictated the course of evolution, the future of this planet now resides in the mind and action of man. The destiny of all life on earth is in the hands of man. When he decided to exploit nature for his so-called progress, grasslands too met the same fate of many other life-supporting systems. In the early 19th century, when the sun of the British Empire rose over South India, the shadow of doom fell over the virgin lands of Western Ghats and its inhabitants. Their enclaves were shattered to smithereens as the British built their summer residences over the lands of the Toda, Kota, Kurumba and the Badaga. The capital of Madras Presidency was shifted to Uttakamand in the heart of the Nilgiris. Military bases came up in nearby Kunu. From Kotagiri, the missionaries started to absolve the sins of the natives. Great tracts were cleared and covered by tea and coffee plantations. The machinery, native laborers, administrators, and all the paraphernalia trundled along in the rear. The fate was common to nature everywhere in India. The colonial tradition was continued true to the letter by the inheritors of independent India. Dubbing grasslands as wastelands, the plunder was continued by planting tea, wattle, and eucalyptus. High-altitude grasslands that had once extended throughout the high mountains now shrank to isolated bits and scraps. The bits and scraps were left alone because planters found it unsuitable for cultivation. They were left to entertain the masters. They became the game sanctuaries. It is rather ironic that most of present-day India's wildlife preserves are the remnants of the hunting grounds of the erstwhile rulers. Among the leftovers, shadows of a long-gone splendor remained, the culture that had flourished in harmonious coexistence with fellow beings. This anthropocentric world warms up as alienated ancient cultures and isolated life systems wilt away and succumb to their fate. But shielded under the shredded green garb of the Western Ghats, there still breathe the last of the fragile survivors. The feast is over. Walk away, while the last of the progenitors of the palm, the Bentinka Kodapanna, bids adieu. While the last of the Ipsia malabarica orchid peeps at you from behind the green curtains.